person from Chick-fil-A who worked there for many, I believe it was 6 years, without any disciplinary problems whatsoever, was fired after he refused to pray with the rest of the Christians at that Chick-fil-A. The man was a Muslim, and of course Chick-fil-A said they fired him for other reasons, but they settled for an undisclosed amount of money outside of court. And if you actually look through their legal history, that happens a lot with them. So, long story short, in Buckley v. Vallejo, the United States Supreme Court ruled that money or funding for political campaigns is actually a protected form of speech. And because of that, students should be able to choose where their money goes if it's going to be used to fund campaigns. And since Chick-fil-A has pumped a huge amount of money into Proposition 8, a huge amount of money into organizations that are actually labeled as hate groups because of their anti-gay stances, we feel that students should have a right to not finance Chick-fil-A, which would be perfectly fine if students weren't required to buy a meal plan. However, Sodexo takes all of the leftover meal plan money, and John Weber knows the details of the contracts a little bit better than I do. But for instance, this year alone, Sodexo has to pump $50 grand into Chick-fil-A just to keep them on campus. And not only that, Chick-fil-A gets benefits from being on campus because they get better maintenance, they get utilities, a lot of this from student money. So all I'm asking, I'm not asking to get rid of them, I'm not asking to move them out of the Senate. All I want is the Senate to essentially say that refusing or being morally opposed to Chick-fil-A is a good enough reason to opt out of the meal plan. Just like being on a halal diet or another strict religious diet is a good reason to opt out, being opposed to Chick-fil-A should be as well. Any questions?
You guys can direct questions only right now to Paul. Any questions? Go ahead.
What are some of the alternative actions that you've considered?
Well, sort of sit-ins were one option we thought about, where people would go through and pay for all of their food in pennies and kind of bring it to a standstill. There were a lot of people really calling for the ouster of Chick-fil-A from campus altogether, but that's simply not realistic, and I wasn't going to try and bring that before you all because it would be stupid. But what we can do is say that students who don't want their money to go to Chick-fil-A don't have it, and thereby protect their right to freedom of speech and essentially allow them to make a statement against Chick-fil-A where they otherwise wouldn't have been able to. Sorry, that was a bit of a circuitous answer, but I hope that got it.
Kelsey.
I just want to know, like, I understand what you're trying to do, but what is going to safeguard from people taking advantage of this? Like, it's not like dietary or other reasons, like having kids. Like, it's just completely sort of, I don't want to say random because it's something that I believe in, but like, how are you going to keep people from taking advantage of this?
And that's a very good point as well. I had considered that. One of the things is, though, a lot of dietary restrictions, like a very strict vegan diet or a raw foods diet, people wouldn't be able to eat on campus at all with some of those diets. And there's no way of proving, oh, this person only eats raw food, therefore they should get out of the meal plan. But nevertheless, we have to respect the student's choice. And if we don't respect the student's choice to opt out of the meal plan so as to not finance Chick-fil-A's goals, I mean, for me, not only is that in opposition to our diversity statement as a university, but it's illegal.
John.
Similar question. Wouldn't this just allow every student to say that they want to opt out of their meal plan and there's no proof of anything else? Having sat on the waiver committee, you do have to get doctor's notes and things like that for the other waivers. You can't just submit an opinion.
And that's fair. I considered a couple things about that. I talked with some students, and they're thinking about actually forming an RSO in opposition to Chick-fil-A's stances. And I think membership in that RSO would definitely qualify as enough, like, backing to prove that. But apart from that, I don't think we as a university can in good conscience say that student money has to go to organizations like this that so many of the students oppose and that run counter to the goals of our university. And if that means, I don't think every student's going to come forward and try and get out of this, because most students aren't going to realize it. But the ones who care are going to do it, and I think we need to safeguard their rights.
Ben.
Nothing. I was just going to ask about student opinion, or if it was your opinion.
A lot of students, actually. There was an organization that's actually still active and meeting regularly, trying to get Chick-fil-A off campus. So.
Are there any more questions?
Can we look at other options since even if this was passed, there's no way Sodexo would say, okay, because it does essentially create a huge loophole in the meal plan. I mean, I don't even think university administration would go for it.
But if university-
But if we offered a different solution to where maybe the student money does not go directly to Sodexo, to Chick-fil-A for these things, and it comes out of a separate pod or something from Sodexo, it seems to me that that option would be a little bit more realistic. It depends what you're going for, if it's symbolic or practical.
It's both. I think it would be best to go ahead and pass this to let the Senate take the stance that we do support students' rights to choose where their money is spent. And also, if we do operate under the idea that the Supreme Court said that campaign money spending is a protected speech, then trying to limit that is unconstitutional. But the third point is, if we could come to a way of making sure that student money isn't spent on Chick-fil-A at all, I'm personally okay with that. But I think that we need to go ahead and pass this resolution first, and then talk about it after we've shown that we do care about this issue. So,
Mike.
I'll go ahead and say I agree with John that I'd like to see some other way of doing this. I don't think this will pass by. Even if we pass it, I think that this will get shut down immediately, because it's a very easy way to opt out of the meal plan. And I know people who would say that, yeah, I take offense to Chick-fil-A, can I get out of the meal plan now? I really like the idea behind this initiative, but I think that it's just going to be a waste of the university's time to review this. I'd like to see something else that we can do that's maybe not something that can be so easily shut down.
and I think this opens the dialogue, but also there are things like raw diets that, doctors don't have to approve a raw diet. You can be on a raw vegan diet without doctor's approval, and they can still get out of the meal plan for that. And I know lots of people who claim to be vegetarians but actually eat different things that aren't vegetarian, or claim to be vegans but will bend it for this. And I mean, there's no way of solidly proving something like that. But to me, the moral obligation to our students outweighs any inconvenience.
Abby.
I just think that before we take the drastic measure to pass a resolution like this, we should first get maybe a petition from the students who do feel this way. Because I know for myself, I haven't heard anything about this issue until you brought it up here at this meeting. So I don't know. I think by passing it, we would just be opening a huge can of worms, basically.
Okay, we're going back here, then we're going to Mike, then we're going to Curtis. And if there are no direct questions after that, I'm going to ask for a motion to move this. Okay? Back here first.
Me?
Yes,
I'm Linda.
Linda, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I have a haircut.
It looks great, Linda.
Thanks, I like it too. I was just going to say that I think if someone was really intent on getting some sort of a waiver in the first place, they would have already attempted to do so. So I'm in favor of passing the resolution, because I think it is important for us to make this kind of statement that we do care about our constituents' needs, and that we are committed to these sorts of goals. And I think it's important regardless of whether it passes, because for me, it's about representing rather than thinking in terms of what's going to be accepted by the people that we're trying to, I guess, compel. But I do think that if students wanted to try to waive, they would have already done so, because I've gotten things waived before when I really was concerned about it that no one else cared about. People aren't necessarily going to do all the research to see about opting out of these plans, I don't think, just in my own experience.
Mike, go ahead and make sure it's a question.
Mine's actually just a question. Is this a first reading?
Yes.
Okay.
Curtis.
I'm actually in favor of this too. Could we also have somewhere in here that would also kind of put some emphasis on Sodexo actually submitting a proposal to us if they do not like the fact that people could get the meal plan waiver? I think that would kind of alleviate a lot of the stress on behalf of the students by forcing Sodexo to actually reply to us. So that's what I would say.
Any more questions? Okay. I'm going to go back here first, then Kate, Paul, and then back. Go ahead.
At first, I would think that trying to find a midpoint between where you don't have to completely get rid of the meal plan, but you can still try to help it so that Chick-fil-A is getting this money. You think, oh, so maybe they just need to cut back on the cost a little bit so they can take away that money from Chick-fil-A. Well, that doesn't really make sense because Sodexo's pooling all this money they're getting from every restaurant here, and they're just distributing it based on whatever they apparently owe Chick-fil-A and all the other restaurants. So it almost seems like they would deny it just because even if these people aren't going to Chick-fil-A, their money is being pooled into something, and the money that Chick-fil-A is actually getting from their food they're getting. So I'm not sure any of this is going to work, and I think the best thing they probably can do to address this is for these groups to get Chick-fil-A off campus, because otherwise I don't think it'll make sense to try to get rid of the meal plan.
Kate.
This is kind of a general question for everybody, but there are some people who brought up, I don't know, like, that this might not be a good step to take, or that this is a drastic step. What kind of fallout do you all anticipate if this passes? What's drastic about it?
Okay. Keep that in mind. Paul, I'm going to go to you.
Yeah. I just wanted to address a couple things that different people said. I'll go in order. First of all, about which student groups have been up in arms about it. I don't know which one the list serves, but I know Common Ground and Health Sciences for Human Rights are pretty much up in arms about it. A lot of students from the Muslim Student Association are very upset about the way Chick-fil-A handles themselves. So it all depends upon kind of like which groups you run with or which people you talk to. The group is trying to get them off campus, which, to address your thing, I think, and yours, is much more drastic, I think. And not going to happen because they're locked into a 7-year contract right now. They meet regularly. There's a political science professor who helps coordinate the whole thing. There are members of the Office for LGBT Services. There are students. There were law students, medical students, graduate students, arts and sciences students, tons of people there. So this is really kind of a wide-reaching thing. And last of all, I agree with Curtis completely, actually. This is the first reading, so I say we send it on to e-board. But if we next time we're at e-board to get in something about putting it on Sodexo to come up with a solution, sounds great to me.
Did I hear a motion in that?
Well, I would like to make a motion to move it to e-board.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of moving this resolution to e-board, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Are there any abstentions? All right. This resolution has moved to e-board. Okay. We're now going to move on to letter 1.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. I'm sorry. They're in one.
No, it's all right.
Okay. Go ahead.
Alright, so it seems like we're all anticipating pretty lengthy meetings, so I'm going to try to keep this as concise as possible. It's a short resolution, so I'm going to make the motion that even though the first reading we suspend the rules to go ahead and vote on it. There's not much background information, and it's so moved.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to suspend the rules of the evening and to consider this a second reading so that we would be voted on tonight. It has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that Sodexo has already agreed to parts of this resolution, and passing this resolution tonight is kind of like putting our name
more
on it for
symbolic.
them and saying, we believe in this, so go ahead and make it happen. Because they're already working with us, so.
Is there any more discussion? All right, just so everyone's clear, we're voting to move this to be voted on tonight. All those in favor of suspending the rules and allowing this to be the second reading of resolution Sabra, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Are there any abstentions? All right, we're voting on this tonight. We're back into discussion of the entire thing.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. So I don't know, I mean, if you guys gleaned from what John had to say, what it is that this document is resolving to do, but essentially, if you've noticed, in Tulip and Jasmine, they've been offering these Sabra to-go little hummus packets with pretzels. And it's a recent development, and it is tied in with Sodexo, like most of the food options on campus are. And the problem is that Sabra is half owned by Strauss Group, which is Israel's second largest food and beverage provider. And there is a whole movement, actually, a boycott, investment, and sanctions movement against Sabra Dipping Company because of the investment practices of this conglomerate, Strauss Group. They use a lot of their profits and revenues to support financially and morally the Golani Brigade, which is like an elite faction of the Israeli Defense Force.
I don't know how much you guys know about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but there's been an occupation since 1967, and the Israeli government, in collaboration with